Hello and welcome to the Pete Braley Show. It's always a pleasure being with you. I want to get right to our guest today because he's got so much to share with us. Our guest this week is Jim Phillips, who's been in local news for years, now retired, but it's time to find out what he's up to, and we're also going to discuss the state of local news coverage. That was the original reason for having him here, but I worked together with Jim for a few years. It's a pleasure to see you again. Welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you too. It's really, we've seen each other in passing, perhaps, but it's great to see you. It's great to see you doing what you're doing.
Yeah, having fun.
Good, Pete.
Doing
That's
things,
great.
keeping busy. My wife tells me I'm a lousy retired guy. I'm doing a lousy job at retirement, but did I read that you began covering local news in 1973?
That's correct.
Right?
That is true.
WBSM when it was on Pope's Island, right?
That's right. It was owned by a corporation called Good Neighbor, and they were out of New Hampshire. And eventually it was resold to George Gray, who had owned it previously. So that was my experience in the first first go around with WBSM. That was about 11 years. And then from there we went on to television, which was a complete surprise to me when they approached me about it. I mean,
they approached you?
They approached me.
Okay.
They approached me. They had a program, which was local cable news, but they wanted to beef up the news part of it. They had a lot of features, car repairs, things like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't what they envisioned. So I somewhat reluctantly said, well, let's try this. Let's see what happens. And it worked out for 21 years. So
21 years.
21 years. So I had a great time there. It was hard work, every day putting on a half-hour local news program. But it was a lot of fun. And I think when you go into this business, you and I know, you want to have fun.
Yes.
That's what this is all about. It was a lot of fun there.
Did you always want to get into news?
My first love was sports.
Okay.
I wanted to I wanted to do play-by-play and do some interviews and things like that. But in order to get those kind of jobs, Pete, you've got to start at the bottom, work your way up. My first jobs in New Hampshire, in Berlin, New Hampshire.
Okay.
I did some play-by-play there. And I did some play-by-play for WBSM in my first go-around.
Okay.
But other things happen, and you say, well, I need to work. I need to be able to find a job that I can go to 5-6 days a week and work.
Right.
Obviously. News seemed like an interesting thing to do, and the more I did it, the more I liked it, and that became fun too. Now it's a different kind of fun.
Oh yeah, because you're dealing with serious issues.
There's some more
sometimes.
serious things that you have to deal with. Not always serious, but there are some serious things, and so I enjoyed that and did that at cable, and did it my first time around at BSM. And then when I came back to BSM, cable had closed down the program. Comcast had, so I came back to BSM. You hired me.
That's right.
I think the statement was, we need a news director. And so I said, well, I'll see what I can do. So that was that. I stayed there from 06 to 16.
Right.
And then I retired after that.
But you're still doing a weekend show there, right?
I did. I did a Saturday morning news shift. When you're in the news business, the hardest shifts to fill sometimes are those weekend shifts.
Right.
And so when I became available, I said, I could probably do the Saturday morning for you, because I know how hard it is to fill that shift.
Right.
So they said, okay. And then they said, how'd you like to do a public affairs show? And I said, well, okay. How long a show? Well, it'll be an hour. What are you going to call it? Well, we're going to call it Town Square Sunday.
Okay.
Which is the name, Town Square is the name of the corporation that owns the station. And Then I said, well, how many guests do I have to get a week? They said 3. And I said, well,
that's not easy.
no, that is not easy. But we've muddled through. Yeah, we've had some repeat segments that we've aired, but I try and do at least 2 new guests a week, and I'm having fun doing it. I enjoy it a great deal.
Challenging to line up those guests, though, every week, isn't
It
it?
is. It certainly helps when you have one of the tricks is to get some rotating guests that you can call on every 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing I do.
Right.
For instance, Jack Spillane of New Bedford Light is one of those rotating guests. It helps that I've been doing this for a long time. That's all I can say.
They take your calls.
They take the call. They will not hang up. They take the call, and we try and work out a day when people can come on. Now, look, we also I have to give some credit to the sales department, frankly.
Oh, true. They feed you ideas.
They get in touch with people. People tell them about something going on. Can you get us on the show, or get us on live with somebody, or get us on with Jim? I mean, and so it all works out.
Okay.
So while it seems hard, and sometimes it is, we're doing okay.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I wanted to have Jim on the show, we talked, I think, back in November, and just in the phone conversation, we were talking about the state of local news coverage, how much it's changed since you and I were in the business, and how would you answer that? What is the state of local news coverage?
Well, I would say, yes, it's changed, and yes, there's less coverage. I don't think there's any question about it. You can't hide that. You can't sugarcoat it.
No.
You just have to look in the local newspaper, listen to the stations, and you'll know that there's less coverage. Now, they are doing what they can. I'm not going to blame corporations for that necessarily.
Okay.
Because, look, everybody works for somebody.
True.
And when you're told, we've got to cut so much, whether it's, and we'll leave it to you, the manager, to make the cut.
Right.
That's what happens. It's not an easy thing. People who run corporations, who are presidents or vice presidents or whatever they are, they answer to stockholders as if it's a public company. And I think when those orders are handed down, you're looking for something that can serve the market, maybe not like you did before, but serve the market and still give the impression, and I'm going to call it impression, that you are covering some local news.
Right.
Now, at stations where you and I have worked, BSM, the talk market sometimes drives the news. Sometimes.
True.
The talk market, the people on the air, the people who call in, they drive the local news. And it's become more and more like that as newsrooms have decreased staff, and as there's just been, you're not covering anything, you're not going out and covering anything.
Right.
So you rely on the talk market really to kind of give you a hint as to how people feel, what issues are important, what's going on in their neighborhoods. I mean, that's really, talk market was important when we worked in it.
Right.
Now I think it's more
Even more so.
Even more so. So these are not easy decisions for managers. They've got people they've got to answer to. And I think that when you look at it in that way, you understand that, okay, if there needs to be decreases, what are other stations doing in our market? How are they handling it? Some aren't handling it at all. So we're going to do this. And then you try and plan it out. You try and figure out what to do, how to do it. And, of course, the biggest change in news, Pete, in our lifetime has been the emergence of websites.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, there's no question about it. So when you have a website where you can post news stories, that's an important part of the station's image.
Mm-hmm.
And more people are visiting these websites all the time.
They are.
I can tell you, from my perspective, when Town Square Media came in, the website numbers were nearly non-existent.
True.
We had a website. Nobody put anything on it.
No.
I don't know why we had it, but we had it.
Because everybody had one, so
Yeah.
you had to have one.
Sure.
Right.
And now, then it was, I'll say the Deborah Aguiar. We had a meeting with Deborah Aguiar, Jack Peterson, rest his soul, and
Yes.
myself.
Yep.
And she said, there's no doubt about it, you got to put news on the website. Okay, so we started small, got bigger. Town Square came in and expanded the whole idea of it. In fact, Town Square's idea is to put stories on the website before you put them over the air.
Right.
Website first.
Right. Right. And I remember a lot of times when you were on the radio, you would tag your story by saying, to learn more, go to the website, which, when that first started, upset a lot of listeners who were like, but I want you to tell, I don't want to go to the website. I want you to tell me. But they feed each other.
Well, they do feed each other, frankly. And I'm sure some stations are doing it, but, not a lot of stations are doing it that way, I don't think.
Right.
TV is different. We'll talk about TV in a minute. But clearly, for radio anyway, this is a way to make up for some of the things that perhaps they're not doing in local news.
Okay.
Okay. I wish they would do more. I wish all AM stations would do more.
Mm-hmm.
Is AM radio dead? Well, not in New Bedford, not
No.
in Fall River.
No.
They're still listened to quite a bit.
Right.
But I wish I could see more local coverage. Newspaper, we all know the plight of the newspaper. The Standard Times has hired a few people lately, but you get the feeling that it's still very short-staffed.
Right.
And stories, they lag behind. They're a day or two behind our website in some cases. And the only entity, frankly, that's really doing a great deal is New Bedford Light.
Yes.
New Bedford Light. I mean, they're doing,
Which
I think, a wonderful
ironically
job.
is, I believe, staffed and run by a number of former Standard Times employees.
A number of them there, who were editors, columnists, reporters. They moved over to New Bedford Light.
Right.
Now, New Bedford Light is not, at least not yet, a full-time newspaper. They publish when they get a story.
Right.
Get a story, they publish it. They don't cover cops on a day-to-day basis, police. They don't cover the fire department on a day-to-day basis. They don't cover schools on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Although they have, frankly, done a nice job with schools lately. I think they've beefed up education reporting.
Right.
But when they get one of those stories, they publish it. They publish it right away. They do a lot of long-form investigative pieces, frankly, that are really
Very well thought
done,
out, very
really documented.
research. Right.
It's really something that they are providing a service with that kind of reporting that nobody else is doing. Nobody else.
And we don't know the inside workings, but I guess they've found a way to make it. I don't know if they're making a lot of money, but they're still going. They're still publishing.
Going. They're meeting expenses. They have brought on people slowly. A videographer, a new reporter here, someone else there. It's a slow process.
Right.
But they are raising money kind of in the PBS fashion, accepting large donations.
Right.
But they haven't yet come down to, give us your $10, we'll send you a letterhead or something.
What do you think of the importance or the impact that social media has had? I look at social media as a blessing and a curse, because now people that, and I'm not saying that, everybody should have a voice.
Yeah.
But it used to be that you had to learn certain rules, certain basics before you had a platform, whether it was a talk show or a column. You had to go through certain things before you got to that level. Now, anybody has a platform.
Yeah.
And a lot of sites, we don't have to mention names, but there are a lot of sites on Facebook and Twitter that are publishing news. They're just putting it out there with no filters. Do you feel it's been a good thing, bad thing, both?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story here. Jim Donnelly, who I work with at Cable, said to me in early 2000s, "What do you think about people getting their news from Facebook?" And I said, I don't like that idea. There's much of what you said. There's no filters. They're just blowing it out there.
Because it used to be we had to have two sources before we ran with it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're putting information out there without really talking to a fire investigator or a police investigator, for instance. It can be dangerous. Mm-hmm. But if someone can teach these folks, and I'm sure the effort has been made to teach folks, you got video, put it out there, give a general description of what it is, where it is, and say we'll be following this up later.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the safest way to do it. And a lot of places do that, although sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. But I think, so I'm not a big fan of news on social media.
Right.
But I understand what's going on now. In the early 2000s, I didn't really understand what was going on. Too wrapped up in my own world of doing a TV show every day that I didn't really understand what was going on.
But I do have to admit,
now I know what's going on.
Yeah, I do have to admit, when something happens, whether it's a fire or a car accident or something, that's where I go first.
Yeah,
because
Talking New Bedford Guide.
Or
New Bedford Live.
Right.
Whatever
Someone's going to probably have a story up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are covering some news. They may not be perfect. Mm-hmm. The piece may have gaps in it, in terms of information. There may be an error in it, but they're getting stuff out there. And to that, now, given the climate we're in now, and given the fact that no one is going out like they are,
right?
I say, keep improving. Keep doing your thing, but keep improving.
Yes.
Try to be succinct in your writing. Gather as many facts as you can, and go from there. That's all.
Are you enjoying retirement?
I am, to some degree. I mean, I'm doing a lot of things at home that I never did for 45 years.
Right.
So that's a little different. But I do feel that my wife and I are getting older, and it was time in 2016 to say enough. It was time a couple of years ago, maybe less than that, to say enough on the Saturday shift. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to keep going on the public service thing or the community service thing for a while. I can see
nice.
A while, because I enjoy it, and it's really no pressure per se. It not like handling a news story that's very important. You got to gather facts. And
I was going to ask you, when a big story develops, do you still miss being a part of it?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm that way. If there's a hurricane coming or a blizzard, I don't mind not having to get up at 3 o'clock and drive through it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But there are times when I'll watch the TV coverage, and part of me wants to be a part of that because it was so much of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about TV for a minute. TV has had cutbacks as well. Mm-hmm. No question. If you talk to a TV person, they'll tell you we're trying to do more with less. But that's what people at cable told me. You're going to have to do more with less, because this isn't a real TV operation. It's a TV operation, You're going to have to do more with less.
Right.
You're going to have to put that program together with 8 to 10 people. And that meant videographers had to shoot and edit and then do playback or direct but at the end of the day at 5:30.
Right.
That meant reporters had to go out, sometimes shoot, come back, preview the tape, write this story, then anchor. That's pretty standard for many reporters in the business now.
Right.
When I first got to cable, the reporters were shooting their own video. And we had guys back in the station who were talented videographers. And I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's team these two guys up with reporters. The show will look better. The show will look better. That's what we did. That was the end result. And I'm glad we did that.
Because it was a good show.
It was a good show. Listen, it wasn't always a great show. We didn't have breaking news every night, but we tried to put together some interesting stories, some human interest stories for sure, very important in our communities. And I think we succeeded for the most part.
Right.
It's too bad it went the way it did, another corporate decision. You move on. You have to.
Things
I had to
change.
move on.
We had to change.
Yeah, it was only I don't know. I was 58, I guess, when they closed it. Still had certainly 5 or 10 years to work.
Exactly.
So I got to do something. So
yeah,
went back to radio, which I loved. I mean, I love radio. It's a wonderful, immediate existence. It's a medium that serves the community. Whether it's whoever shows on in the morning, Pete Braley or otherwise, it is a show that a lot of people they just turn it on. It's habit, and they get weather, very important. Hopefully, a good newscast, things throughout the day that you're going to tell them about. Maybe a guest that's coming on that can fill them in on some event that's happening soon to happen in the community. I mean, that it's. I'm going to tell you that it's like you're their friend.
Right.
You're their friend. You're giving you all this information that you use every day, and you'll be back tomorrow. Click, turning it on.
It's been so nice having you in today. I mentioned to you that one of the things I'd like to do is to have my guests join me for the top 5 list. So I know you're a big baseball fan. You still play fantasy baseball?
I do.
Yeah. He's a big
same crew.
Yeah.
We're in our, let's see, in our 24th year.
Wow.
There's been a few additions and subtractions.
Right. Well, I know Jim's a big baseball fan, so I thought today that we would go with the top 5 baseball stars that you have seen play. So I called Jim and I told him about this, and you asked me, you said, so people I actually went to the park and saw instead of seeing on TV, and I said, yeah, let's do that. So one thing I've learned about these top 5 lists, none of them are perfect, okay? He's going to say some I haven't thought of. They can move around, but just a little fun.
Mine is not perfect, I can tell you that.
Okay. So my top, I don't even know who to put 5th. I guess I'll go with the most recent and say David Ortiz is number 5. Okay. Who's your number 5?
Nomar Garciaparra.
Oh, nice. All right.
I mean, Nomar, for 5 or 6 seasons, whatever it was, I know there's Derek Jeter and A-Rod. I'm going to give A-Rod his due coming up. But Nomar was very good.
All right.
Just, very good. Very exciting player. Could hit with power.
My number 4.
Enjoy to watch.
My number 4 is Pedro Martinez. Had a chance to watch him. I think sometimes we take for granted how good he really was.
Pedro, well, I'll save this because he's on my list too. But
okay. Your number 4 is?
My number 4 is my childhood idol.
Ooh.
Which would be Carl Yastrzemski.
He's on my list too, but
Now Yastrzemski, listen, I watched him mostly on TV, but there were times when I did get to see him. And I got to see him the most in 1967 when I was going to school.
The Impossible Dream year.
Yeah. Well, if you watch Yastrzemski in 1967, you knew he was the best player in the major leagues that year.
Okay.
That's it.
Nice.
That's it. And as far as I'm concerned, he helped the 67 team help save baseball in Boston. And
he was the driving force.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah.
All right. Where am I? My number 3 would be Nolan Ryan. Nolan, because I saw he was with the California Angels at the time.
Wow.
So
that's back a while.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think that was early 70s.
I mean, I admire him as a pitcher. He just had several years there where he couldn't throw enough strikes, and when he did, he was unhittable.
Okay.
But early years with the Mets and with the Angels, he'd walk a lot of guys.
Okay.
Now he curbed that to some degree by the time he got to the Astros and the Rangers.
Rangers, right.
But a great pitcher. I want to say 7 no-hitters. Is it 7?
Something like that, I think, yeah.
Whatever it was.
And he was a workhorse. This guy would go and pitch 13 innings and then show up 3 days later and go more.
Yeah.
So, all right, you're number 3?
David Ortiz.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, John Henry calls him the greatest clutch hitter ever. He's probably not far off. Now, he was just an amazing hitter. Always had... it's almost like he knew what was coming some days. So against some guys, they were all overmatched with the exception of some of the great pitchers, but Ortiz got his share of hits no matter who was pitching.
Now, my number 2 and 1 can be interchangeable in my book. My number 2, and I told you about this on the phone, I saw Hank Aaron once at Fenway Park.
Yep.
When I saw him, he was with the Milwaukee Brewers. So he was at the end of his career, but I mean, just someone in baseball lore, it's like, I saw Hank Aaron play. So, I mean, I'll go with him at number 2.
Well, I'm going to go with Pedro Martinez.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, the impact
Pedro,
he had.
You mentioned it. We didn't realize how good he really was.
Right.
Pitchers around the league, team ERAs, all pitchers, you look it all up, the ERAs in the 4s, 4 runs per 9 innings. During that same time period, which was the steroid era, Pedro in that time period, his ERAs were in the 2s.
Wow.
He was 2 runs better than anybody else.
Wow.
No,
all right.
He was phenomenal. He belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, so we're pressed for time. I got to go right to my number 1 is Carl Yastrzemski. Growing up, he was my idol.
Yeah.
I used to mimic his stance, in the backyard. Yeah. So my number 1 is Yaz. Your number 1?
My number 1, Roger Clemens.
Oh, I forgot. See, there's one I forgot about. Yes, I saw him play.
He won 196 games with the Red Sox.
Right.
I don't know what happened in Toronto. I really don't know what happened in New York, and I don't know what happened in Houston. But the fact is, he was a great, great pitcher, a workhorse, a strikeout guy, and he made the 80s and early 90s enjoyable for me.
Right.
Because there were some good teams there, but not always good teams. I want to say something about, and we really don't have a lot of time.
Right.
A-Rod.
Yes.
Maybe the best shortstop ever.
Really?
Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Just look at his years 5, 6 in Seattle, and then his first 2 years in Texas before the steroids apparently came.
Right.
But man, he was a great player, great player, and
And he just tainted everything with the steroids.
Yeah, sure did. Yep.
Thank you so much for coming in, Jim.
I appreciate it, Peter. Thank you.
All right. We are out of time. That'll do it for this edition. Thank you so much for watching.